Moriden Athluan.
Working from within, Moriden Stormcrown created distrust, hatred, and discord within the ranks of the mighty vampire army raised by the ancient bloodline of Clan Volkar.
Cursing the name of he who defeated them, these vampire hordes were driven back to the plains of oblivion.
And so we find ourselves thrown together once again, my friend. Almost as if one of us were looking for the other. But why would either of us do that?
To self-improvement and the training of long-ignored talents and abilities.
Even as he trained at the illustrious and fabled Mages College of Winterhold, Moriden still continued to search for a solution to the continuing dragon attacks.
Spending his time, now, searching for answers among the countless tomes of the arcane library, it would not be long before he was again called on to save all of Skyrim.
Ah, is that where we left off? Once again, the bards only tell you what they believe to be truth. They weren't there. They don't understand. You, though. You, of all people, need to understand. So let me tell you what the bards will not, what they cannot. Because the truth is not what the bards would have you believe. "19 Evening Star, 4th Era, 201. I went to bed early, planning to depart Solitude in the dead of night. I have no goodbyes to give the people here, and since they will not admit to my help, I feel no need to admit to their existence. Such a departure suits me perfectly. The plan from there is simple. One by one, I hunt down the 4 dragon priests I know I can get to, search out the burial sites of the remaining 2 Galdur brothers, then get back to the college and, if nothing has been learned about Sarthol by then, leave that waste of my time to rot as well. Alduin. The threat he poses to me personally and to the rest of the world as a secondary must take priority now. It occurs to me that I might be overreacting to this whole Solitude thing. Maybe in a few days I might have a different opinion. I would not bet on it, however. The first target is supposedly called Volsung, and should be interred in a ruin to the west of Solitude called Volskeg. If he is here, however, I am surprised that the local bandit population here hasn't woken it somehow and gotten themselves killed, which suddenly makes me doubt myself and my notes. No, there can be no doubt. The target I seek is here, and if there are a number of wastes of skin bandits between me and my goals, then I can remove them as I have countless bandits before them. In a rush, I move to a perfect position to shoot them out of the darkness, counting on their own night blinding of themselves with the torches they carried to hide my position and the direction of incoming fire. It worked to perfection, leaving 7 dead with no return fire or wounds to hamper me. With them eliminated, I moved to the ruin itself, where I would have to be more cautious. The bandits quickly vanished as I went deeper into the ruin, replaced by Draugr. There was nothing remarkable about the ruin to this point apart from one combination puzzle that required a book and a vague clue to figure out. More than I am used to needing in a ruin, but an interesting change, regardless. Eventually, though, the Draugr vanished. The ruin was replaced by raw caves, and the Draugr with large frostbite spiders. I've left the more modern portion of the ruin, it seems, and eventually the cave returned to a different, older ruin, and the Draugr returned. This portion is obviously far, far older than the other portions I've been through, and that gives me hope that my confidence is not misplaced, that the dragon priest I seek is here to be found and killed. When I walked through a door and emerged into daylight, I felt a flush of disappointment. No dragon priest. A waste of my time. I took a few moments to shout a few obscenities, then got hold of myself and looked about myself. I found myself on a peak, or rather almost on a peak. Turning around, I saw a final set of stairs heading upwards. Climbing them, I found a word wall. Thinking that the entire day hadn't been a complete waste, I read the wall to get the word Fury, the second word of Whirlwind Sprint. No sooner had that knowledge been attained when I heard a loud crashing of stone behind me, turned, and found that I hadn't missed the dragon priest at all. A few moments later, I pulled the mask of Volsung from the ashes its body had become, along with a few other useful and displayable trinkets. Feeling significantly better, I checked my notes once again. The next priest in the order I had selected would be Vokun, in a ruin called Highgate, on that far side of Marthal, which meant that I had another stop first, as the second brother's tomb was located at the foot of the southern spire of the Solitude Arch. I expect that I can make the entrance today before sleeping and exploring it tomorrow. Sleeping will not be an option. Approaching the tomb of Felgunther, I noticed something very out of place. A camp. A recently abandoned camp. A quick look through it made two things clear. First, that it had been abandoned only this morning, and second, that the leader of the group is here specifically to find the amulet I seek as well. On the good news side, however, this interloper also brought along something I wouldn't have known I'd need. Another of the dragon claw keys I've seen a few of. This one, made of ivory, the previous owner of the claw met an untimely end in Breville, it seems. Not that I particularly care how the man ahead of me got it, but at least I know it's here. And from what I've read, I have the knowledge of how to use the key that he does not. He'd better be fast, because I will be faster. And I am coming for him. I suspect that the man I'm seeking did not get far. Certainly those he had hired to go with him did not. One was dead not 10 feet into the tomb, victim of both Draugr and a poisoned dart trap. The second had died in the first main room behind a lock that looked like the claw key would have opened it, along with several more Draugr coffins. The next room on had claimed yet a third, this time to a host of Draugr, many of whom were still alive when I walked in, which means that if my prey is still alive, he had to have run and left his assistants to their fates. Alone, now. He likely did not last long. I merely need to continue on, I'm sure, and I will find his remains. And the ivory claw. No murder for me today, it seems. which I suppose is just as well. On the upper platform I found his body, and his notes, which were far more enlightening. I have an answer now to the relationship between Galdur and Sarthor. The relationship is coincidental. At best, there is no direct connection, it just happened to be where the middle son was finally hunted down and killed. The story of the amulet's power, however, has me intrigued. As best I know from these notes, the original amulet had enough power that it caused even the children of the great Ysgramor to seek Galdur's counsel. The splintered amulets in the hands of the sons had enough that they were able to rampage almost unchecked. It may have no bearing on Sarthor, but it still seems something well worth pursuing, and so I shall. After a number more dead Draugr, and continuing down the ruin, I finally found the Hall of Stories, and this time I got an unexpected surprise. Though it did not slow me down much, I was surprised when the lights suddenly vanished, and the coffins in the room opened. Out came the Draugr, who are, fortunately for me, very slow to emerge. Slow enough that I was able to put arrows into them and prevent them from fully rising. As I said, a surprise only. With this defense defeated, I opened the door at the far end and continued on. The final chamber reminded me very strongly of Red Eagle's tomb in the Reach. Very strongly. Enough so that when Mikul emerged from his coffin at the center, along with all of his long-dead friends, I was not shocked in the least. My bow, this time, did not suffice for the battle that commenced, though it was able to account for 3, perhaps 4 of the Draugr, before I had to swap to my axe flames and shout. It still wasn't too difficult of a fight, and I have to say that for a man who is supposed to have been a powerful mage in life, he didn't make much use of it here, though some of the minions used flame breath and unrelenting force. Surprisingly, he didn't make much use of such himself. Must not have had the inborn talent. I took his portion of the amulet and began seeking the way back out. I should have expected there to be a word wall tucked away here. Perhaps Mikul was attempting to get his minions access to a new shout, as I now have. This time it gave me access to Frost Breath, one that I've seen several dragons use but have seen no trace of to this point. I emerged into a clear night, where I set up camp and went to sleep. I still have a long journey ahead to find the other priests and the remaining piece of the amulet, and it would not do to sleep in too much. 20 Evening Star, 4th Era, 201. I awoke in the midst of a blizzard. This, however, was not going to stop me from carrying forward. If anything, it gave me even more reason to keep moving. I was packed up and mounted in short order, and, rather than head south for the main road, I decided to push through the swamp itself. High Gate is supposed to be located north of Ustengrav, the tomb where I once retrieved Jurgen Windcaller's horn. I found that tomb easily enough, and by following a ridge northwards, I was quickly able to locate High Gate. I haven't been this happy to see a tomb, or really any interior space, in quite some time. These last 2 days have been ones full of surprises. Today, I get to meet an adventurer who isn't a complete idiot and has a decent amount of combat ability, it seems. Anska is about as fiery as a Nord woman gets, and like most women, it is generally inadvisable to be between her and what she wants. This was borne out by the no less than 7 dead Draugr that were in the room with her, which she stood all but untouched. Such skill deserves to be respected. We spoke briefly, and though she isn't aware of just how powerful Vokun is supposed to be, she did know that he is buried here and was supposed to be a priest of some kind. She is completely uninterested in Vokun himself. She hunts for a scroll that links her family bloodline to Ysgramor's, so family legend says. I am not a fool. So rather than be in her way, we will both be proceeding together for a time. All she wants is the scroll, so anything else I care to claim will be mine, which makes the dividing of acquired treasures so much easier. Traveling deeper into the ruin, I realized that my estimations were partially incorrect, but only because I didn't know she was a magic user as well. I wasn't brave enough to call her a mage, not to her face anyhow, but she did not hesitate to use her abilities to deal with Draugr that got too close to us while I was busy shooting at the more distant ones. It was somewhat novel, really. Even Serana, when we traveled together, tended to get in my way. With Ansgar, it was almost like we thought with the same mind. She knows combat as well as I do, I think, which means that should I ever find myself in her crosshairs, I could not say which of us would emerge alive. Best not to find out, I think. We passed through a room that looked very much like a hall of stories, but minus the claw key door at the far end. Ansgar noticed the carvings as we went by, ancient, which led her to believe we had to be getting close to Vokun and her scroll. She was, in fact, correct. When a massive double door opens before you get within 10 feet of it, and is then followed by the emergence of a floating undead nightmare, you can also be certain that you have likely found where all the most valuable of items in a tomb are. Such is what happened with us, and taken by surprise, battle began. The thing is, we hadn't gone through the door yet, which, as Malcorin found out a week or so back, means I have the tactical advantage in a ranged fight. 2 arrows and 1 massive fireball later, the very old, dry, and flammable Dragon Priest was in ashes, like the others before it. I claimed the first of my prizes, while Ansgar began her hunt for the scroll. When it didn't turn up quickly, I could hear the frustration in her voice. I helped, of course. I believe I mentioned how it is unwise to be between a woman and what she wants, but I wasn't able to find it any more than she did. Then we walked into the next room, where she got her scroll, on a table, in plain sight. And I gained access to a new word and a new shout. This one I like. Storm Call. I can just see it. Someday I'm going to hear some idiot priest declare that if he's wrong, lightning should strike him down. And there I'm going to be, with a shout that will do exactly that. I think you can see where that's going. Ansgar left the tomb as soon as she had her scroll, and I wasn't far behind her. We had cleared out the tomb and found what we were looking for far more quickly than I likely would have on my own. That left me the remainder of the day to travel back the way I had come, and then south into the Reach. My new target was, of course, another old Nordic ruin called Valthum, supposedly located on the southern rise, not overly far from the Orzamer stronghold of Dushnik Jarl. Indeed, I stopped by to visit with the Orzamer while I was in the area. They are still as gruff as ever, but pleased to know that someone appreciates their blacksmithing arts well enough to learn to do it their way, something that most other smiths who have learned from them rarely do, it seems. With a new set of directions, because of course they knew where I was trying to get to, I set off, and as the sun began to set, found myself on the doorsteps of the dragon priest Hevnarak. I hope he enjoys morning visits, but like them or not, it's about to get one. 21 Evening Star, 4th Era, 201. Stealth was, I thought, out the window as soon as I entered, but the ghost that stopped me had only warnings. Leave, lest I accidentally set loose an ancient evil. A few leading questions and I confirmed that this is the burial site of Hevnorak, and that it is getting stronger. I can't imagine why that might be. Something to do with its master Alduin returning to the world, perhaps. After convincing the ghost to stay out of my way and let me destroy the thing, the ghost reluctantly told me that to get to the priest I needed 3 keys, each of which was guarded by one of the priest's minions. Because of course they would guard the keys and not do something useful, like, say, pick them up, unlock the doors to their master themselves, and set him free. That would be too obvious, apparently. Then again, they are dead, and the dead don't have great thinking skills from what I've noticed. With that knowledge firmly in my mind now, I set into the tomb to destroy an ancient evil in waiting. The first room is, I think, where the priest is actually reposing. At least, it has the right look, which means that the keys to waking it up must be further in. While I didn't find any keys in that room, I did find something else interesting. There's likely some legend surrounding this item, and I'm shocked that nobody has tracked it down yet. Honestly, I didn't know what I had at first. It looks, at first glance, like a regular Nordic urn. Except that this one, for reasons and through means I cannot imagine, burps out coins every so often. That will definitely not be going in the museum. I have a nice little treasure room in the safe house, where it can burp all it likes. I won't even get angry at it for being rude when it doesn't excuse itself. Passing through, I came to a room that reminded me of nothing so much as a chapel, along with undead parishioners. The expected tussle ensued, resulting in the room becoming a chapel of death. Well, they were dead before, so, re-death. After a small bit of walking and setting enemies on fire until they died, I ran into what I think was the first of the minions tasked with guarding one of the 3 keys. Honestly, I was expecting a little more from it. When the lid from the coffin fell to the floor, I reacted before I realized what I was doing. I put an arrow into its face faster than you can... faster than you can do something very quickly. I should really erase that. That's so bad it's embarrassing. I'll have to remember to come back and rewrite that later. The keys are vessels, so what they are meant to hold I do not yet know. What I do know is that picking it up opened a new path behind me, which makes this whole not bringing the keys to their master thing at least make a little more sense. No, not really it doesn't. Ignore that statement as well. The cult surrounding this particular priest seems to have been a bit less orthodox than the other ones I have seen to this point. Not that they appear to have been a great group of people, of course. More than they seem to actually use some level of creativity. For example, judging by the next room I entered, they still enjoyed a good sacrifice or execution. No surprise there. The twist is that death by spider appeared to be their preferred method, given the 2 bodies shackled in the center of the room, and the large number of spiders to go with them. Not how I'd want to go. Then again, I would prefer not to go at all. Like the protector of the first vessel key, the second one lasted only as long as it took me to see it, draw, and shoot. If this is the extent of their power, then I have to wonder at the ghost in the front room saying he wouldn't be able to hold them inside much longer. I think its long vigil has somewhat shaded its perspective about this place. Taking the vessel, I continued deeper into the ruin. If one is trying to lock a door, Why have the key no more than 20 feet from it? Did they want the creature inside to be released so easily? From what I saw, that must be the case. Otherwise, why have one of the claw keys in the same room as the door that it unlocks? I agree that the spiders set up to guard it would likely be at least some deterrent, but I am very seriously beginning to question the thought processes of the people who built this prison of a tomb. The last of the keys also unlocked access to a new word wall, where I have learned the first word of Aura Whisper, what seems to be a variant of the magical spell of Detect Life. Really, that should be the other way around. The magic is likely a copy of the Shout. Thinking on it, this is likely true of most magic. Theirs is the pale copy of a power given to the dragons by Akatosh himself. If any mages ever figure that out, can you imagine the cracked teeth they'll have, realizing that there is a power greater than their own? I'll have to keep that idea away from the college. I'm not sure I or the rest of Skyrim is ready for a completely insane group of trained mages unleashing their pent-up jealousies all at the same time across the province. Now, back to the opening room of this tomb to talk to a ghost and see what to do with these vessels. Conversation with this ghost, and I no longer have any desire to eat lunch. Or is it dinner coming up? Hevnarak, in life, drained all of the blood from his body. Suicide. Also, gross. The intention, then, was to transfer all of his energy back into his own dead body, thus becoming an all-powerful lich. This is even more disgusting. I want to live forever as well, but you don't see me trapping myself in my own desiccated and rotting corpse for that eternity, do you? If you are going to live forever, you should look good while you do it. Our solution is to give it its blood back and revive it, then kill it again, this time without the mystical blood transfusion. I know that there are some bad things out there magic-wise, but this just seems a bad idea, even if you are oblivion bent on world domination and eternal life. Despite everything I have seen and said to this point, let me be clear on one point. A lich is, in fact, very dangerous. My arrows seemed to pass straight through the thing, leaving me magic and, as it turned out, an axe and shouting to down it. Not content, however, to destroy me on its own, it brought a few of its more powerful skeleton friends along. The ones that should have been in charge of protecting the vessels, I think, but this works out in its favor pretty well also. I had to dance about the room, spraying with flames, shouting with voice, and hacking with muscles just to stay alive. Any damage I was doing to it or its friends in the process was entirely coincidental, I don't mind admitting. Honestly, they should have led with this instead of... Actually, in retrospect, perhaps this was a way to instill a false sense of confidence. When it was all over, Hevnarak was a pile of settling ash on the floor. Its skeleton defenders were scattered across the room, and the room itself had significantly more battle damage than it had when we had started. Of all the priests I have defeated, this one was by far the nastiest, and perhaps the ghost's warning about it was justified in retrospect. Speaking of the ghost, it thanked me for freeing him from his service, offered me the priest's mask as a reward, which of course I'd already taken and stored, but no need to get into those semantics, and then vanished into the aether. Tired and worn, I exited the tomb into a gathering sunset. I pitched my tent in the same place I had the night before and slept it off. I have more traveling to do tomorrow. The remaining priest I can be sure of is in the rift. as is the last of the pieces of the Galdua amulet.